Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vintage Motocross Q&A. I am your host, Joe Abadi. Thank you, Jordan, Chelsea, Susie, for helping me put the show together tonight, and thank you all for watching the show. Let's get down to the starting line, and I'll tell you what you're going to see tonight. The starting line, of course, is sponsored by Motion Pro, and the next time try this segment, we're going to talk about copper head gaskets. Should you use them again? Here's what you'll see in that segment. In the Moto Showcase, we take a look at a 1978 Jones Ice-Low, very rare bike sent to us by Pete Nudeman. And here's the problem segment. Can you fix twisted plastic? Jay Hall wants to know, and I've got an answer for Jay. What's it worth? Really great bike. It's coming up. 1976 RM 125A. 522 project continues. I got a nice video for you tonight. Don't forget to share the show if you're on Facebook. Tell some of your friends you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Invite them over to join us. If you're on YouTube, please comment AMSOIL. AMSOIL is a sponsor, and we will be giving away an AMSOIL product later on tonight. So whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube, please keep sharing the show. Comment AMSOIL if you're on YouTube. Somebody's going to win a really great little package from AMSOIL tonight. Hey, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's growing. It's getting really, really good. You can see all the shows that we've done here at Vintage Motocross Q&A, and this is the 59th episode, by the way. And you can subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get an alert, tells you when we're on live, and you can listen to all the previous shows that we've done there, including all of our interview segments from Vintage Motocross Radio. As always, I want to thank all of our sponsors, AMSOIL, Motion Pro, Vinco, Full Circle Racing, Preston Petty Products, and Northwest Mako CZ. I also want to thank Lanny J. Lanny J doesn't have a logo, but he does great work, like on that CZ tank back there. We'll be talking more about Lanny J's products a little bit later on. Our next time try this segment is brought to you by Vinco. Keep the ride going. Today I want to talk to you about head gaskets. If you have a used one and you want to use it again, I want to talk to you a little bit about that. The first thing you want to think about is annealing. What is annealing? In simple terms, annealing is just heating something up and returning it to its normal shape. Yes and no. It's actually just heating something up, and how you cool it is how it's going to return to its normal shape. Now, this is a used head gasket from a 1974 Honda CR250. I didn't do anything to it. I did measure the thickness of it. It measures about 21 thousandths. It does feel rather stiff from being in use on the bike for so many years. What I did was I ran a little experiment and I heated them up using MAP gas. This is also a used gasket. I heated it up and I cooled it in water. It did get a little softer on the edge. It did expand to 23 thousandths. They were all about 21 thousandths when I took them out of the motorcycle. So this one does get a little bit softer. It does get a little bit thicker, and I cooled it in water. This is another one that I took out of a bike. I heated it up the same way using MAP gas. I let it cool by air. Took about 5 minutes. It went up to 22 thousandths, and it isn't so much the thickness that I was concerned with, but this is considerably softer than the first two, the one that wasn't treated at all and the one that was cooled in water. So if you're going to use a head gasket again, yes, you can heat it up. You can use MAP gas. You can even heat it up on a stove. How you cool it is going to make a little bit of a difference. If you cool it in water, it's going to get soft again. It's going to expand a little bit, about, just about a thousandth or two from when you took it out of the bike. It is going to get softer. It's going to get much softer when you cool it with air. It takes about 5 minutes to cool it that way. Now, this is a brand new head gasket, and if you're looking for new gaskets, you want to go to Vinco, the sponsor of this segment. So, can you use used head gaskets, copper ones? Yes, you can. Does it make a difference whether you cool it with air or you quench it in water? No, it does not. In fact, I've even seen articles where it has stated that you should anneal new head gaskets because they're not soft when you first get them. Whether that's true or not, I'm not really sure. I've never done it that way, and very seldom have I ever had a problem with a new copper head gasket leaking. Well, those are the myths, and some of them have been busted on copper head gaskets for this week. Vinco, thanks for all your support. Don't forget to visit Vinco online with over 650 products in their catalog. In the Moto Showcase tonight, which is sponsored by Preston Petty Products, we'll be telling you about a great discount from Preston Petty in just a few moments. But right now, I want to talk about this 1977 Jones Islo that was sent in to us by Pete Noneman. It's a very rare and unusual bike. As Jordan goes through the slides, I'm going to read to you just what Peter wrote to me. I just finished my 10-plus year quest to find and restore a Jones MX. I say it's a 78, but the year is hard to determine as all research I can find does not show model years. I believe they just kept updating them as they went. In the last 4 years, 2 different buys of parts, a second containing a rare aluminum swing arm, gave me most of what I needed to complete this project. But some parts, like the airbox, I just had to fabricate. I was able to find the correct OEM front Goodyear tire. Several other Amex owners who I've met have helped me through social media and helped me a lot with this project. In just the last month, I was able to buy a very original red Amex. And this one will be cleaned up and it will be kept as is. How many were made is a tough one. I spoke to Gary and Dwayne Jones at the first Unadilla MX Rewind, and they told me that there were about 3,000 made. A year ago at the Whiskey Throttle radio show, Gary said there was only about 1,000 made. Tom White told me he feels that there were only about 300. I tend to believe Tom, as I know of less than 10 others in the world, and you just don't see them around. Thank you for taking my bike and putting it on the show. Best regards, Pete Noneman. I have to agree with you, Peter. Now, I wouldn't want to argue with Gary Jones about how many were built because he was the owner of the company at that time, but I have a real difficult time believing that there were many more than 300 of these bikes ever made. I've only seen 1 or 2 in all the years that I've been involved in vintage motocross. I do know where there is one in New York State, still in the crate, brand new. I'm not going to tell you where, but I know where the bike is. It won't be for sale anytime soon, I can assure you. But Peter, for sending in such a great bike, we're going to get you a nice product from Preston Petty. You send me your address and I'm going to mail it to you. And thank you so much for sending in that Jones Islo. Now, I did say it was a 78. I thought it was a 77. You mentioned here, Pete, that it is a 78. So we're going to call it a 78. Either way, Pete, thanks for sending the bike in. Get me your address. I'll get you something from Preston Petty Products. Speaking of Preston Petty, I think this is the best discount we've ever seen from Preston Petty, and he's been giving us discounts and specials since the day we came on the air. But right now, we've got free shipping for the next 3 days only. 16th, 17th, and 18th, you have to inbox me for a special code, free shipping. Now, I'll tell you, Paul is giving us 10% off on a lot of products. If you buy a fender, it's $50. You get $5 off. Shipping a lot of times can be $15, $20, $25, sometimes even more, depending on how many fenders and how big the box can be. For the next 3 days, free shipping, compliments of Paul Standard and Preston Petty Products. Don't forget, you got to inbox me for the special code. Thanks, Paul Standard, for all you do. In the Here's the Problem segment tonight, sponsored by Motion Pro, we're going to get to look at some really interesting questions and some good tips that were sent in by a few guys as well. Jordan, what do we have first? Jay Hall, I've got an original front fender that has a twist in it. Is it possible for me to make it straight again? Yes, Jay, it is possible for you to make it straight again. What you need to do is make sure, first of all, well, you say it's a front fender. I've seen people think that back fenders are twisted and sometimes it's the frame that's twisted. But if it's on the front of your bike and it's twisted, I've seen this happen. We've all seen it happen. A bike sits in a shed. It gets really hot in there. The fender sort of deforms. And when you take it out, it's still laying on one side. When a fender is made in a mold like this, where Preston Petty is making their fenders, those things are made and they want to go back into their original shape. That was the whole point of making originally making plastic fenders, that they were indestructible. They would go back into normal shape again. But they're sitting around sometimes, they're leaning against something in a shed, in a trailer for an extended period, they can get a little distorted. And here's what I would recommend. You can do this with a heat gun, but you don't want to get too close to the fender. You want to stand back away, maybe a foot, 18 inches, and move that heat gun. You can even do it with a hair dryer, because you're not going to really need that much heat. You're going to want to go over that whole fender, okay? But here's the key, and I couldn't show you a picture of it, but you'll understand what I'm talking about. You need to figure out a way to prop up that fender into its shape that you want it to be in. So whether you take a broomstick or a 2x4, whatever it may be, you got to figure out a way to pull that fender back up into the original shape that it's supposed to be in after you get it nice and warm using that hair dryer or heat gun. what has happened to me in the past was I once had a KX 250, a 79, and the plate was bowed out quite a bit on the side. It was the original plastic on it, but for whatever reason, it was bowed out a whole lot more than I liked. I did heat it up. I mounted it on the bike, or it was mounted on the bike. I heated up the number plate, and then I took some duct tape. I put it on the bottom, and I pulled that duct tape over to the side panel on the other side. And after I heated it up, I taped it in place. You let it cool nice and slowly. When you take the tape off, it's going to stay right where you put it when it was hot. And the same thing is going to happen when you do that either on a front fender or the rear fender of your bike. So yes, Jay Hall, you can straighten them out. You just got to be a little patient. Don't get overzealous with the heat gun. Maybe even use a hair dryer, and make sure you move it evenly over the whole fender. Thanks for the question, Jay. Anthony Zatolo, can you recommend a product that would be good for removing sticker glue residue? I can, and I'm going to recommend something that you already have in your garage, and I do this asking forgiveness from Russell Waters from Motion Pro. From Russell Waters from Amsoil, because I'll tell you what I'm going to recommend. WD-40. WD-40 will cut the glue off of any surface, whether it's metal or plastic. What you want to make sure you use is either a rag that doesn't have any lint or these paper shop towels, which are lint-free too. Spray WD-40 on there. You can wipe it down. It's going to remove all the glue. Follow up with a clean paper towel and Windex. Whether it's plastic or metal, WD-40 is going to cut that glue off there. Follow up with the Windex. It's going to make it nice and clean. Or you can use regular, like rubbing alcohol too, which is great. But Windex works just as well. It's going to get that surface just as clean, squeaky clean, ready to put new graphics on there. And that's all you really need to get the glue off. I hear a lot of people talk about Goo Gone and Goof Off and all these other things. WD-40 is probably something you have right at home in your shop, and you'll be able to use it right away. And Windex as well. Thanks for the question, Anthony. James Sharp has a tip for us tonight, and I was really looking forward to bringing it to you. Here's an easy-to-find replacement Kickstarter for a Suzuki RM 125A, B, or C. It's originally made for a late-model 1970s Kawasaki KE or KX 125. And here it is. It's made by MGO, Kickstarter lever. The part number is 8361640. They are available on eBay. I just looked this afternoon. There's plenty of them out there for just $27. If you've got a problem with your spline on your Kickstarter for your RM 125A, B, or C, this is going to solve the problem. This is a picture of James Sharp's actual bike that his son races. And there it is. Sits there just perfectly, works perfectly, and certainly priced right at just $27. James Sharp, thanks for the tip. Robert Oscar Pomeroy also sent a tip to us this week. It is about a Can-Am engine installation, and I've been through this a few times, and it can be a pain in the neck. What happens with the Can-Am is the swing arm pivot bolt goes through not only the swing arm and the frame, but it also goes through the engine. Now, when you take the bottom end of that engine out of the frame, that swing arm is swinging there on the shocks, and everything gets real loose and goofy over there, and it's very difficult for one person to put the thing back together again. Now, here's what Robert suggests. He says you take, next slide, Jordan, there it is. You want to measure the back of the engine because there are actually shims that go in between the swing arm and that engine when you put the thing back together again. The problem is, along with the swing arm moving and being loose in there, those shims are not easy to keep in there either. So, you want to measure the back of your engine, then you know what shims you're going to use on your Can-Am. Now, here's where the interesting part is from Robert Oscar Pomeroy. What he suggests is that you take your pivot, just like you see it right there, you put it in one side, and it'll be able to hold the swing arm steady, and it's going to hold your shims in there. You want to get a pivot the same size, could be from another bike, could be from a Can-Am, and you want to put it on the other side. This way, it keeps that swing arm nice and steady. It keeps your shims in there. And one thing to remember is you want to try all this out before you actually go to put the bottom end into the frame. You want to make sure those pivots run smoothly through the swing arm. Everything's greased up and moves very, very easily. When you're doing it this way, you alone then can put that bottom end of the engine, or maybe the whole engine if you're that strong. You can put it into the frame just like that. Then you can push the pivot you're going to use right through. Nice and easy. It'll come out the other side. It'll push the other pin out, and you'll be in good shape. because it's very difficult to handle that engine on a Can-Am frame like that. Rob Roscoe Pomeroy, I want to thank you for that tip on the Can-Ams. You always send in some really, really good ones. Thanks for sending us that one. We're going to take a commercial break, and I'd like you to keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you are on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, please comment AMSOIL. We're going to have a winner a little bit later on in the show. He's going to get a nice gift package from AMSOIL. Jordan, let's see what that commercial looks like. Motion Pro, great tools. We use them here in the shop. I'd highly recommend it. Go check them out at motionpro.com. What's it worth? This week, we've got a 1976 Suzuki RM 125A that sold earlier this month on eBay. $5,721. It was sold in Texas. I'm going to read to you a little bit about this bike when Jordan goes through the slides. If you look it over carefully, you'll see that this RM is ready for a museum or private collection, or you can ride it. It looks like it just came off the showroom floor. The original parts were restored where possible. NOS parts were used along with high quality reproduction parts. The bike was completely disassembled, cleaned, and inspected. The frame was powder coated. The tank received a professional paint job, correct Suzuki yellow. New decals were applied. All the rubber parts were replaced. All fasteners were zinc plated. The engine was completely overhauled with new bearings and seals, gaskets, and piston kit. The bore still measured in spec and is standard in size. All it needed was a little bit of a home. Carb was completely cleaned with all factory original jetting installed. The engine has been broken in. The bike rips as it should. New period correct full circle racing rims are laced to Buchanan stainless steel spokes. You may have noticed this, but it has period correct modified. You may have noticed that this bike has a period correct modification using a complete 77B model front suspension and conical hub. I really didn't know that that was a upgrade, or it was an option rather at that time. Anyway, there it is. Basically, every part on the bike has been either replaced or restored. And there it is for $5,721. I think this was a really, really great deal. To even go find one of these bikes, you're probably going to pay a couple $1,000. And I can tell you with the utmost certainty that by the time you go buy a set of full circle rims and spokes and hubs, and you have someone do the paint job and the powder coating and all the other parts that go along with this, you're going to spend well over $3,000 in the parts and outside services, plus the bike. Then you got to ask yourself, do you have the expertise to do a job that this guy did? Not everybody does. $5,721 is a screaming deal for this bike. That's how I see it. And that's what it's worth. A good place to know how much your bike is worth or find out the value of it would be the Vintage Motocross Buyers and Sellers Price Guide page on Facebook. This is a group that I started over 6 years ago. There are over 16,000 members, and a lot of people get help there every day. Somebody's always posting a bike that they want to know the value of before they put it for sale, or they'll post a bike that they're interested in buying and they want to get feedback from members of the group if they feel the bike is worth it or not. There's some real nice and helpful conversations going on there all the time. Nothing is for sale. There's no want ads. There's nothing else there but people discussing the value of motorcycles. Vintage Motocross Buyers and Sellers Price Guide page on Facebook. This week's installment of the 522 Project is, of course, brought to you by Full Circle Racing. Be sure to visit them on Facebook and online at fullcircleracing.limited.com. This week on the 522 Project, we're going to be talking about the forks, the front suspension, what I had to do or began to do in order to keep this project going. We're using a set of 1977 Honda CR125 forks, and the tops, or the caps rather, or lack thereof, are a little bit different than any other bike. Now I have to admit, I've never taken apart a 1977 Honda CR125 fork, and it was a little bit of a challenge, not too much, but once I got it figured out, I wanted to explain it to you. So whether you're replicating a bike like this or you just have a 1977 Honda CR125, you're going to want to pay close attention to what's going on here and how these forks come apart. At the top of the fork, there's a cap like this. This thing is held in by this clip. But before you get to that, you're going to see something that looks like this. this little cap here with this little 6mm with a 10mm head on it holds that all down in there. And it goes, of course, in the top of the fork leg, right about here. Well, not right about here, exactly here. Okay? So once you get this nut out or that bolt out and you remove this clip, this is going to be exposed and you're going to have this little thing sitting in a clip, in a groove rather, this clip sitting in a groove holding this thing down inside the fork. The only way to get it out is you have to push it down because it's being held up by the spring. So what I did was, instead of using this little 6mm by, oh gosh, maybe it's only 10mm long, I took this 6mm, much longer bolt, and I put it in here. So I was able to push down on this cap and expose this clip. Once I was able to do that, I just used this old 4-sided file I had. It was the pointiest thing I had, and I was able to get underneath that clip, and I was able to work it out. After that, I was able to remove this seal, as you're probably seeing in the video as I'm speaking right now. And fortunately, the nut, or the bolt rather, that holds in the lower fork leg into the damper rod came out quite easily. When you do it, don't forget that there's a copper washer in there just like this. You might want to replace it or make sure you save it and you can use it again. After I got the lower fork off, I did put it in the blasting cabinet and I got it nice and clean. I'll be refinishing this, and in an upcoming episode, we'll show you what that looks like. That's it for this week's segment of the 522 Project. I want to thank Tom McAllister and Full Circle Racing for being the sponsor of this segment. Full Circle Racing got a great special still going on. Free shipping on rims and spokes, and they're available for most Hondas, Yamahas, Suzuki's, Kawasaki, CZs, Husqvarnas, and Makos. Be sure to mention that you saw it here on Vintage Motocross Q&A to get the free shipping discount. And he's also got that other great deal going on up there too with the hub powder coating. He'll clean them, disassemble them, blast them, mask and powder coat them. Standard colors, $50. Add $10 for the brake plate. Request a special color other than matte black or gloss black for just $20 more. Sounds like a great deal to me, fellas. You can send your hubs unfinished up to Tom McAllister. He's going to finish the hubs, give you new spokes, new rims, lace, and true. Give you a brand new set of wheels back in the mail from Full Circle Racing. Don't forget to visit them online at fullcircleracing.com. Also, they're obviously on Facebook. And that's it for Tom McAllister and Full Circle Racing. Thanks for all you do, Tom. I really appreciate it. We'll take another commercial break. When we get back, we're going to have a winner of the AMSOIL giveaway. Don't forget, keep sharing it if you're on Facebook. Comment AMSOIL if you are on YouTube.
Classic and vintage dirt bikes are more than a hobby. It's not just about the ride. It's about the work that goes in. The work that keeps you connected to the ride. It's about bringing the bike back to life and doing it with your own hands. It's about the adrenaline and adventure. And when it comes to putting all the pieces together, only Vinco knows the bikes and parts the way you do. Vinco, keep the ride going.
Sue came in. We've got the winner of the AMSOIL giveaway. It is Paul Schiess, S-C-H-I-E-S-S. Paul Schiess, S-C-H-I-E-S-S. Paul, contact Susie or inbox me with your address. I'm going to get you a nice package, compliments of AMSOIL, some really great products that they've been producing. I'm going to give you a hat too, and we've got some other stuff around here. Compliments of Russell Waters and AMSOIL. Paul Schiess is the winner of tonight's random share giveaway. Lanny J, building a beautiful tank. I've got one for a CZ right back here. He's building them for just about, well, I know he builds them for Bultacos, CZs, Makos. He's done some other ones for Hercules and several other models. The prices begin at just $395 that are available from Lanny J. You can get a hold of him on Facebook or his email, cmjay@bellsouth.net. Now, here's a really great picture of one of the CZ tanks he makes. It's a lot narrower than the factory tank. Also in the previous slide, you saw a picture of a Hercules tank. He makes them for Bultacos. There was a picture of that one too. And when you really can't find a tank for a Husqvarna, when you have a problem like this one right here, where it's cracked, all dried out, and can't possibly be replaced, you could see Lanny J, and he's going to make you a tank just like that. He does beautiful work. His welds are absolutely phenomenal, and the fit is absolutely perfect. I know other people who use Lanny J's tanks on their bikes. They've been commenting on the page during the week whenever I mention that Lanny is one of our sponsors, and they're all real happy with what Lanny does. So get a hold of Lanny if you're looking to replace that plastic tank for your Bultaco, CZ, or Mako. Thanks, Lanny. This Week in Motocross History, sponsored by Northwest Mako CZ. They had a nice special last week on Magura levers. Jordan told me that he got a hold of Alan Brown this week and he bought some parts for his Mako there. I know he'd be loving to hear from any of you. Tell him that you saw it here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. So, this week in motocross history. In 1975, very interesting little race took place. It was called the American Motocross Finals. The Anaheim era of Supercross began on this night in 1975 with the running of something called the American Motocross Finals. The race was not part of any series and brought together some of America's top riders of that time around a track that was built inside the stadium where California, the California Angels played baseball. Mike Goodwin's Stadium Motocross Group was the promoter of this already successful Super Bowl of motocross at the Los Angeles Coliseum. The track was designed by Jimmy Weiner. The race was a run what you brung event. For instance, the eventual winner was Tony DeStefano of Team Suzuki, who rode his Works 250 Suzuki in that race. Who took second place? Gas and Galen Mosier on a Wheelsmith 450 Mako. And Team Honda's Marty Smith showed up with a screaming 125cc Works bike and eventually set the best lap times of the night in that stadium. Unfortunately, his engine seized in the third race and he was out. And get this, desert racer Al Baker showed up on a four-stroke Honda and had the loudest bike in the race, although he didn't really do very well. There was also a high school motocross race that same evening. And the battle went on that night between Honda riders Brock Glover, Dave Arupkin, and Steve Bauer, with them finishing in that order. Tony DeStefano was the top of his game, and he did win that event that night. He also won the AMA series that year and the last Inter-Am race and several rounds of the Trans Am series as well. But that happened that night in 1975, the American Motocross Finals. I don't really remember too much about that. I was really happy. I found that over at Racer X. Somebody else has got a birthday this week. The Dogger, Ron Lechien, back in 1966. The Dogger dropped into this world. Happy birthday, Ronnie. You're one of the all-time fastest and most stylish riders, and perhaps one of the most controversial as well. You are an AMA Supercross and Motocross champion. Of course, your probably most memorable race was the 88 Motocross des Nations in France, where you went 1-1 individually. You went 1-1, and your team joined you on the podium. Rick Johnson and Jeff Ward, where you guys took an overall victory that way. Happy birthday, Ron Lechien. We've got some announcements for you tonight. Jordan, what do we got up first? Oh, my guest this weekend is going to be Gary Semix. We were scheduled to have Lee McCallum on our radio show this weekend, this Sunday at 11 a.m. Lee had a little bit of a scheduling conflict, so I got a hold of Gary Semix this Sunday at 11 a.m. You will be able to hear my interview with Gary Semix at Vintage Motocross Radio. I'll be putting a post about it on Vintage Motocross Radio probably tomorrow morning. So if you have any questions for Gary, you could post them there, and I'll be glad to ask him this Sunday morning at 11 a.m. when Gary Semix is my guest. There's Gary Semix. Sadly, the Potomac Vintage Riders have to cancel the York Swap Meet that was supposed to be on January 24th. It is canceled. There are some other events that are canceled too that I may or may not have slides for. I just read yesterday from Dave Boysen that the Mecum motorcycle auction is canceled until April out in Las Vegas. So if you plan on going to that in January, that's been canceled, as well as the Old School Scrambles group down at Glen Helen. There was supposed to be a race there on the 20th. No race there this December. You've been hearing me talk about this bike on the show for a couple of weeks now, 1983 Honda CR250, and we are giving it away. If you want to get involved in the raffle, there's nothing to purchase, nothing to buy. Just go onto your email, and email us at vmxqalive@gmail.com. You'll have an opportunity to win this bike. We're giving it away on the show December 23rd, 2020. December 23rd is next Wednesday night. Here's just some of the tickets that I have. We've got a whole lot more inside. There's about 600 entries so far. We're going to have them out here sometime during the show. Next Wednesday night, somebody's going to win a 1983 Honda CR250. I plan on having a special guest here to pick the winning ticket. Now, if you know of anybody that still wants to be in it, they can do that. Get a hold of us at the email, just as I suggested you do in that video. A lot of people are sharing it. Tickets are still coming in. The emails are still coming in. I'm going to have to call this thing off as far as tickets go, probably Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. Because if they keep coming in, we're not going to have time to count them. Maybe we can get into Wednesday morning, but that'll be it. At a certain time, and I'll announce it on the page, I'll put up a post where we're not going to take any more emails. That's going to be the end of it. We've got over 600 entries right now. Somebody's going to win a bike next week, and I'm going to be putting up a post on my personal page, probably on the Motorcycle Gas Tank page, the Vintage Motocross Buyers and Sellers Price Guide page. And if any of you guys out there are watching, if you are administrators, I'd like to be able to put a post on your page too, telling everybody time is getting close. We're going to have a winner of this bike. It's going to be next Wednesday night on the show. What's the matter? Don't you want a free bike? Who else is giving away free bikes? Nobody. Get in it to win it. It's not too late. Vintage Motocross Q&A T-shirts are still available, just $21.99. It's got the logo on the front and on the back. You can follow the link in the description. Get yourself a T-shirt. Sponsorship opportunities are still available for Vintage Motocross Q&A. Now, if you remember, I mentioned that in November, we had over 100,000 people reached with Vintage Motocross Q&A. That's how many people got an opportunity to watch the show. Over 20,000 of those people were engaged in comments and sharing it and all things like that. So a lot of people are watching it. A lot of people are sharing it. The word is getting out there. The show's building every week. Although November was a record month at 100,000, we're still seeing 20, 21,000. This week we had about 21,000. So if you've got a company and you'd like to reach that many people a week, and there's no way you're going to do that on your own on Facebook, I don't care how many people share it, you can become a sponsor of Vintage Motocross Q&A, inbox me, I'll get you a sponsorship proposal. You could be reaping some of the rewards that some of our sponsors are getting here, like Motion Pro, Vintco, Amsoil, Full Circle Racing, Preston Petty Products, and of course, Northwest Mako CZ, and Lanny J. Don't forget Lanny J. And those really great tanks that he's building. Inbox me, I'll get you a sponsorship proposal. That's it for this episode of Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank you all who joined in tonight. Don't forget, keep sharing the show. Get your friends to send me an email if they want to get into the raffle. Next Wednesday night, we're giving away a 1983 Honda CR250. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Jordan, thank you, and Chelsea and Susie, and everybody who helps put the show on. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks for watching. And don't forget, Sunday, my guest is Gary Semix on Vintage Motocross Radio. Gino! 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 Uh-oh. This could be it. This could be the night he misses the cue. Gino! Come on, you were running late. Come on, boy.